So what that signals to me is that retailers really were leaning into this technology to help them be more efficient over the holiday period. And what was also really compelling is not only were they doing more actions during this time period, but when we look at employee engagement, so the number of employee sessions with agents, that also surged over this time period. And so what we also know about the holiday season is that staffing is really hard. People are taking vacations. It's just a really, it's not only a busy time for your business from a demand perspective, but it's also a huge strain on your staffing levels and your staff overall. And so we saw employees leaning into this technology to help them during this really busy time, which was really fascinating. And overall, we saw about a 300% increase in average weekly employee engagements with agents, which says to me that employees are getting more comfortable interacting daily with an agent to aid them in their job.
Welcome to the table, steam on the glass. Market moves fast, but we talk it out. From cards to clicks, from mass to scale, every trend that breaks, we pull it apart. Morning in the feed, ideas in the cup. Old rules shaking, new ways showing up. Coffee and commerce, Caleb and Caila, keep it moving. Coffee and commerce, from first sip to future, we're brewing.
Yeah.
I was FaceTiming with the kids this morning because I'm in Atlanta for the Agentic Commerce Tour, which was great. And we can certainly talk about that. You could tell that my wife was a little frazzled and the kids were just going a little crazy. So I had to institute some dad via FaceTime.
There's nothing like a dad to come over the top. Yeah. My husband is not very he doesn't lay down the law that often. But the other day we were in the car and they're all three of them are fighting in the back seat and he just silenced the entire car. I was like, it's bad when he has to do that. It's just
100%.
Total chaos.
That's what dads are for sometimes.
But yeah, school. I'm excited for school. And all of our school shopping is almost done.
Nice.
So have you utilized the school lists on the Target and Walmart apps?
Yeah, my wife did. So we have both Target and Walmart in Toledo. And they both have great deals.
They
really
do. Yeah. So we got, I just love, I used to love going back to school shopping as a kid, but now as a parent, to walk through the aisles with 3 kids, throwing 100%. Things in the cart, and you're just trying to 100%. Check things off the list. It's forget it. So to have it delivered to your house and have the list on the apps, all you have to do is just add it all to the cart.
So you and I were chatting the last time, actually earlier this week. So I took my daughter back to school shopping. She likes it. And so she got a bunch of things for H&M. And then my wife told me that she needed new shoes. And so we went into a few different shoe shops, but she ended up, wanting these pair of white Nikes.
Okay.
And so of course, dads, I'm like, all right, great. That's what you want. But my friend has these Skechers and I want these white Skechers too. And I'm like, okay. And then he's like, and my Uggs I've grown out of my Uggs and I need new Uggs for dance. Cause they wear all the kids wear Uggs to dance. I'm like,
sounds like a Santa problem.
Yeah. And I took my dog with us cause you can take the dog into the mall.
Fun.
And so I had Strider with us and I was like,
cute.
All right, oh, fine. But because you the dog is there and you're trying to manage, child expectations and dog expectations. And we get up to the register and it's 3X, what I was budgeting then for her in my head. Okay. All right. Okay, fine.
It's expensive.
It is. But like what we were talking about earlier, I got her a bunch of new tops from PacSun.
Yeah.
With one of our customers.
Nice. Yeah.
And they've got some great styles for kids, great deals. Cause she's again, you and I talked about this. She's not into the girly phase. She's into I want my own style. Little does she know, obviously, as all of we are conditioned on what, their own style actually is.
Their own style is. Yeah.
Right. So she's into the baggy jeans with, the high-waisted baggy jeans with like not the crop tops, but like the not the long tops. So whatever
Yeah,
those
the
those
fitted
shirts are called.
tops. Yeah.
So yeah,
Well,
so
it's better than when
those-
we were kids, where it was like the skinny jeans, low-rise skinny jeans.
fair point. You
Like,
know what?
that's a battle I wouldn't
Can
want to fight.
appreciate that. That does put it into perspective.
Like, yeah, you remember the styles when we were kids. Yeah. Can't imagine battling that.
Kayla, you
High
bring up a
rise,
great.
baggy jeans. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a good.
no, you're right. I'm thankful for that.
See, I have a similar but opposite problem. My son, he's 10 and he loves Under Armour, and he would wear Under Armour sweatshirts and Under Armour sweatpants every single day. It has to be black. He even wears it. He'll wear it to the beach if you let him. But I'm like, it's 100 degrees and you're going to be outside at recess. And it's like, you have to switch it up. So he has about 10 black Under Armour t-shirts. And I'm like,
The kid knows the style.
he knows. And not only that, but then the Crocs with socks. Apparently which I thought was only my son. But then at the end of last school year,
No,
we went
it's
to
a
like their
thing,
end of year school party. Yeah. All the boys, Crocs with socks. So Crocs, you should make your own sock line to go with your Crocs.
100%. Crocs, if you're listening.
And yeah, that's the uniform. And it drives me crazy. I'm like, what about some nice khaki shorts and a polo shirt? You look so handsome. But no, Under Armour all day. So yeah, that's the battle I'm fighting. It's just trying to introduce some variety.
We need to get back to uniforms.
Right? I know. Some schools in our district have uniforms. And I'm like, that would just make life so much easier, especially in the morning. You get
Totally. Absolutely.
Like the
It's gonna
chaos
cut off
running around the
30 minutes.
house.
30 minutes at least of morning routines, uniforms.
We were late so many times last year because my son couldn't figure out what he wanted to wear. Man.
Clearly not the son that wears the black Under Armour tees. He knows what he's going to wear.
He knows what he's going to wear, but if what he wants isn't clean, he'll run around the house upstairs for 30 minutes, just losing his mind.
Yeah, okay. All right. I have one of those kids too. Yeah, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
All right. This is Coffee and Commerce. So what are you drinking today, Kayla?
I am having a Dunkin' Donuts cold brew. What about yourself?
Hotel coffee. It is the Starbucks version for hotels. Hey, you got to caffeinate the way that you can sometimes.
Exactly. I love a free hotel coffee. It's the highlight of the work trip.
Yeah.
Speaking of work trips, how was the Agent Force Commerce World Tour, or not World Tour, Commerce Innovation Tour?
Agentic Commerce Tour. You were close. So close.
I was close.
Which also reminds me, you got a new title. So we're going to talk about that too. It was good. Yeah. Atlanta was a great, it's a great spot. Like we've got a really nice tower here. And so we were on the Ohana floor. And once the rain did clear up, the sky was absolutely gorgeous. And the sunsets here are incredible. So
it's so flat.
Cool. Well, yeah, exactly. Like you can see the mountains way off in the sunset. We're like, what are those mountains? But yeah,
it's like the one hill.
Well, yeah.
The one hill in the distance.
Yeah, exactly. It's a pretty old mountain range. You're right about that. The customer attendance was really good. So that it's always good to see customers in the room and also multiple customers in one spot. So that's, I think, the main thing that I've enjoyed the most about this Agentic Commerce Tour is being able not only to like share the innovation, but then also to have customers interact with one another, which of course we do in our customer advisory boards, which is great. And like when you're in those and you get to see customers interacting, that's like, it's like magic just happens because people start sharing their stories of how not only their business and not only how they're using the technology, but they get to start, you start seeing light bulbs going off between customers. And that is a cool thing to see. So like we did a bunch of sharing as well, in addition to the content presentations, and different folks were sharing like their stories about what's been most meaningful to them, how they've used the tech in their businesses, and like what their pain points are, what has worked well. And so that was it's always great to be part of those conversations. So
That's awesome.
I encourage it whenever I do these. I encourage it. I'm like, come on, I know you got stories. Bring them out. Figure out the good, bad, and the ugly. Let's figure it out.
Well, I think it's so great too, because I think, prior to being acquired by Salesforce, the B2C commerce had its own user conference. And then we joined Salesforce and we merged with marketing at Connections. And I think the commerce community is so tight knit and so it's just a really great community of people. And I think being able to kind of bring it into a smaller group again and build those connections and have those conversations in a way where we're not talking about a whole host of other topics as well is so meaningful and impactful, and people just also being able to connect with other retailers in their area. There's not a lot of other opportunities for that these days, so that's great.
What was the name of the conference? I'm blanking on it. Was it the Exchange?
Demandware Exchange, yeah.
Demandware Exchange.
Yeah.
I remember that.
Yep, in Las Vegas. We had Tom Brady there one year. That was a big highlight.
We got to up our budget for the Agentic Commerce Tour. I want Tom Brady. Maybe Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah. Aaron, is he still playing?
No.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, he played last year. I don't know.
No, but he's a talking head on ESPN now.
Oh, he is.
Yeah, and he's just hilarious to listen to.
That's fun. Don't Eli Manning and Peyton Manning have like a podcast that they do?
They do, yeah.
And it's really good, apparently, yeah.
You know what? Maybe they could come here. We could go there. I don't know. They might know about Agentic Commerce. Speaking of Agentic Commerce, you have a new title. What's your new title?
Yes, Head of Agentic Commerce Shopper Insights. Yeah.
It's a mouthful.
So exciting. It is a mouthful. It's a long title.
Big title, long title. I mean, it's appropriate because with all of the amount of insights that you deliver pretty consistently, got to have the title.
Well, we're publishing a lot of new research right now, which is exciting. And I think it aligns better now with the mission of the team and what we're doing and how we're bringing thought leadership to market for our customers, because ultimately, the thought leadership really helps us define where the market is going, where the consumer is going. And ultimately, that is what's going to drive product decisions, investment decisions, roadmap decisions. And so I think it's really great. It's exciting. And we've got a lot to be excited about on the back half of the year.
We do. And there's another index that customers can get involved in, which we'll talk some about today. And like, as you were sharing with me earlier this week, there's just a ton of great research that you and the team are putting together. So I'm super excited to see like what comes in the back half of the year, just in terms of the data.
Yeah.
You might be surprised. I'm not a data nerd like you, because I won't crunch the numbers. I'll have Claude do that for me. But I do appreciate a good data point.
Yeah.
So speaking of,
it's good.
Speaking of trends,
go ahead.
You shared with me the latest Agentic Enterprise Index. Super cool. We need an Agentic Enterprise Index as well. We need it.
Well, and a lot of that report talked about the ROI of agentic technology within the commerce organization, right? And what this does, what the Agentic Enterprise Index does, is uses actual real adoption behavior to understand how businesses are actually realizing ROI.
You know what? You're right about that, Caila, and as you normally are. So as we just hit on some of the key trends within the Agentic Enterprise Index, as you mentioned, the first one being agent adoption and how agent adoption is really accelerating across the business. So in terms of the overarching metric for agent adoption within businesses, I mean, the number that you shared was 119%. But like, what's in that number, and how are customers adopting agents within the business within the first half of this year, and what can they expect from that overall agentic growth?
Yeah, well, the first component to what we're seeing, right now is, and this is the second edition of the report. So we looked at this data last summer too. And now this summer, we're looking at a little bit more of a maturing enterprise when it comes to agentic adoption. And so we're looking at the data over a 5-quarter period going back to the start of 2025 through the beginning of 2026. And what we are seeing is, this idea of creation to scale. So the first component to that is businesses are just simply creating more or activating more agents in their business. So when we look at the average number of agents activated within an enterprise, businesses grew that number by 3x over a 5-quarter period. So they went from nearly 3x. They went from about 4 or 5 agents at the beginning of 2025 to about 13, 14 agents by the beginning of 2026. So we're seeing that just from a scale perspective, a ton of growth. What's also interesting is that as businesses get scale, as they continue to build and develop and deploy, what we're seeing is that they're getting better at creating agents. So when we looked at the average number of days to create an agent over the analysis period, we saw that businesses got on average 53% in creating an agent. So we went from about a week at the beginning of 2025 to about 2 days in 2026. So, again, this is an aggregate number. Some agents are more complex than others, but what it does hint at is that they're just getting more efficient. And I should back up and say that the data set that we use is an aggregate analysis of enterprises that have deployed agents into their business in production for the entire analysis period. So this is sort of a set of businesses who have consistently used agents within their enterprise across all 5 quarters. So this is a superset. And so we're seeing, they're creating agents more efficiently. They're launching them into their enterprise more frequently. And also what's really interesting is that as more agents come into production, they're taking on a greater volume of work. So when we looked at the average share of agentic actions on a monthly basis across this analysis set, we saw a 31 compound monthly growth rate in agent actions. So agents at the end of the analysis period were taking on more actions when compared to the beginning of the analysis period. So we're seeing this scale happening in real time for these businesses. And so when we talk about, I think Caleb, you and I, going back to State of Commerce last week, what is their ROI? Is there measurable business impact? What is that? We are starting to see that ROI. We are starting to see that business impact. And that was very clear in this data.
I love this. So we're seeing agent workload increasing. We're seeing the time to deploy agents decreasing, so faster time to deploy. But then we're also seeing more agents being deployed comparatively. Now, and then I think what you said at the beginning of that, it's not just agents being deployed, it is agents in production, right? So these are agents that are taking on real tasks related to the customer buying experience. Is that a fair assessment?
Oh yeah. Yep.
So
Absolutely.
in that light, and that could be like we said, this is not just for commerce. It could be a customer service agent. It could be a sales assistant agent. It could be, again, sort of post-sales order orchestration agent. It could be an agent that has it could be a super agent with a bunch of nested agents inside of it.
Yep.
Like that. But give some examples of like the types of agents that we see the most of that customers are deploying.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this is across a wide variety of actions. What we're seeing a lot of is customer service, customer engagement type of actions are really, really top of the list. So customer service queries, but also what's interesting too, and we'll get to, is employee engagement with agents. So employee engagement is increasing with tools like Slackbot and other types of internal business process tools. And so we're seeing a ton of growth there, and those are triggering agentic actions. And so there's the consumer facing side, which is definitely like the top use case. But then internally, we're seeing a ton of growth in employee adoption, which we'll get to. But yeah, I would say, updating records, pulling data from records, querying records, querying knowledge, creating knowledge, also really important, especially when we think about, there's a ton of data and use case information that is coming out of these customer service engagements, and how you continue to leverage that data for continuous learning, both for your agents, but also for your business, and then using that to inform and make strategic decisions. So yeah, there's a ton. I'm curious, Caleb, have you heard any anecdotes from our customers, maybe on internal operational efficiencies that they've realized with agents so far this year?
Short answer is yes. And I like how you frame that, both consumer facing industries as first movers of digital labor, and then or agents, and then employees using agents more for productivity reasons, or to really to do jobs faster, more accurately and faster. Less room for error, help them to leverage data in more insightful and more productive ways. I think the same is true for our customers. What I have heard quite a bit, especially on this tour in particular, is that customers are building their own agents. They're building their own associated skills, and they are using the data that they have more effectively than what they historically have been able to do before. And so, as a result of that, what they have seen and really finding nuggets inside of and insights that they can act on inside of their own data. So one is just better querying of the data that they already have. And then, so that's like step number one. Then step number two really is, okay, how do we action on that data? And then can we use digital labor as a method to acting on the data as well? So some of that will be autonomous actions. And we talked about this last week, moving from proof of concept to adoption. We're going to see more of autonomous optimization of the customer experience with, by way of using agents, because merchants have spent a bunch of time with their data and deploying agents to help them to get better, more insightful recommendations, and then corresponding actions on what they can do with the data. So I think that's and that's across the board, not just B2C, that's also for B2B. B2B is a bit more on operational efficiency. Okay. But there's gold in those hills, whether it's B2C or B2B, there's gold in those hills. And so that how do you manage the margin opportunity within the data? Well, that's where agents come in. Let your agents help you to query the data and then build corresponding actions based on what you find, and you're going to find margin as a result. And so I think that's probably what I've seen, the opportunity from customers that they are leaning much more into now. And we can certainly talk about it, but just the cost of acquiring customers these days, of course, is incredibly high. But I think I think we'll use Malcolm Gladwell's, reference of a tipping point. There will be a tipping point where organizations will move from one way of looking at the business, and not to say that it's a bad way. All of our standard KPIs of looking at business, both on the consumer side and on business operations, makes a ton of sense. And also, there will be margin attached to agentic actions. And as a result, we're going to start looking at businesses through agentic actions, and what is the corresponding revenue? What is the margin impact of agents on the business? Again, both on the consumer facing side as well as on employee productivity. How can agents help streamline the business to make it more efficient so that they can capture those nuggets of margin optimization within the business too?
Absolutely. There has been a lot in the news lately about businesses really being able to tie their spend to these productivity, either productivity gains or product gains. And what we see in our data as we were studying this, we measured what we called a action to output ratio.
Okay.
So essentially studying whether agents were just simply generating text or completing actions. What's the ratio of text of output, action to output. And what we found was that over the analysis period, we saw a 15% compound monthly growth rate in the action to output ratio, meaning that agents were producing more actions compared to text output, as time went on. So they weren't, again, talking about ROI and measurable impact, hinting at the fact that these are becoming more productive within the business, more efficient. And what's interesting also in our data is that you can see some seasonality in this impact. And so when we look at retail in particular, commerce and retail, we know November, December is the biggest month of the year for most of the industry. And we see a huge surge in agent actions over that time period. So what that signals to me is that retailers really were leaning into this technology to help them be more efficient over the holiday period. And what was also really compelling is not only were they doing more actions during this time period, but when we look at employee engagement, so the number of employee sessions with agents, that also surged over this time period. And so what we also know about the holiday season is that staffing is really hard. People are taking vacations. It's just a really, it's not only a busy time for your business from a demand perspective, but it's also a huge strain on your staffing levels and your staff overall. And so we saw employees leaning into this technology to help them during this really busy time, which was really fascinating. And overall, we saw about a 300% increase in average weekly employee engagements with agents, which says to me that employees are getting more comfortable interacting daily with an agent to aid them in their job.
100%. Or should I say 300%? I mean, yes, 100%. I totally agree. I think of course, we eat our own dog food at Salesforce. I don't actually eat dog food. But there's so much that you can do, right? And there are like really sort of baseline use cases for interacting with agents, which is fantastic. Like I do it all day, every day. But then also very clearly there are much more complex use cases when interacting with agents or building agents to help you to be more productive, that a lot of our team, quite frankly, is doing. And what our PMs and our engineers that are building the product and working on our roadmap, working on voice of the customer feedback, what they are able to accomplish much more efficiently now and with even higher quality as a result of having agents work on their behalf is just so cool to see, because the amount of the velocity increase, but then the quality of the output is also increasing. And I would argue that we would not be able to meet the moment that we are in without the help of agents. And so, thankfully to Mark Benioff and the rest of leadership that paid for all of the access to all the agentic capabilities that we have, within Salesforce. Thank you, Mark. We are meeting the moment in that use case. And I think that the 15% compounded monthly growth rate is really interesting. The 300% increase in adoption, from humans in terms of leveraging digital labor within their day-to-day tasks, I think is absolutely bang on. And I'm so excited to continue down this pathway, because I think the use cases, they just continue to present themselves. And, I'll give you just a couple of examples that I've heard recently. So, one of our PMs who's amazing, love interacting with him. He delivers new use cases to me just based on on various customer, meetings that we have. And then he'll go back and he will build that use case agentically, and he'll show it to me, and then we'll sort of riff on it, and then he'll come back, a day or two later, and it'll be a totally different, much more higher fidelity built out use case, and we're like, that's freaking awesome. Let's go get engineering involved, and so as a result, we've to be able to see that type of excitement come from employees and be able to action on ideation a lot faster, and then be able to bring a much more fleshed out engineering opportunity to the engineering team, and then also to be able to see them take on those additional tasks in addition to the pre-existing roadmap items that they're working on is really, really cool to see, because then they're building super agents that are helping them to execute against their PRDs in parallel, which again is see. So yeah, it's a really, really encouraging time, and I'm excited to identify more use cases for it for sure.
Yeah,
All
well,
right.
speaking of eating your own dog food, it's so funny. We didn't have this technology a couple of years ago, and my husband doesn't work for Salesforce, but his company uses Slack, and so he's always asking me how to do certain things, how to find certain things in Slack. And so I'm like, oh, just ask Slackbot. And he's like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
What's Slackbot? And his company doesn't have Slackbot. And the benefit, I interact with Slackbot with what feels like every day, whether it's
I talk
a
about Slackbot
question.
all the time. All the
It
time.
makes my life so easy. I just think about all the times that I would search for something,
Yeah.
even going back years ago, right? Like you said something in a conversation or a document was shared with you. You are never going to find that going back in your Slack history. And now all I need to do is ask Slackbot both questions about my job, like relevant to my day to day, or even like HR questions, like, when is when is the training due? I can't find the notification anymore. Just so many different benefits. And to think that we used to live in a world where we didn't have this at our fingertips. I mean, just a huge efficiency driver. And that's just one of the technologies that are now out there to help employees be more efficient in their day to day. And so it only goes up from here.
I have a love affair with Slackbot. I'm just going to say, this is confession time. I have a love affair. We might. All right. So fourth finding, and you touched on it a little bit already, but the industry adoption, speed versus sophistication. Tell us a little bit more about that. Because I think that to the point that you're making earlier, certain industries will adopt quicker, but then also there might be some seasonality to that adoption, as well as there might be spikes in use cases within industries that might require, a more elegant approach to agentic adoption. But what did the show?
Yeah. Well, initially what we found when we looked at adoption was the industries that were moving most aggressively in this space were retail and the travel and transportation and hospitality industry. They are growing at a very rapid pace over the analysis period. And part of that, to what you said, Caleb, is seasonality. There's a ton of demand on these businesses, especially at the end of the year. So end of year travel, holiday travel, both having huge impacts on the travel industry, and then holiday shopping having huge impacts for retail. And so we saw those seasonal spikes really driving adoption very, very quickly for these industries. Where we see not as much adoption, but very rapid growth is in public sector and the financial services industries.
Okay.
And so those sectors, we don't see as much, they were late adopters, but they're one of the fastest movers right now. And what I find really interesting, and that is especially for public sector, I would argue that most of public sector kind of skipped over the adoption of the cloud,
Yeah.
but they are adopting agents, which is very, very interesting in my opinion. And so these two sectors are growing, and we know financial services also very similarly highly regulated, so they are not as quick to adopt new technology, but they're growing their agentic work units at about a 13x rate. And so overall, just very, very strong movement there. But When we look at those regulated industries like public sector and financial services, we see them moving with greater, what we called agent sophistication. So we created a scale, we called it the Sophistication Index, which we use to gauge the complexity of agent usage across the business. So we mapped agent actions to 5 tiers of cognitive complexity. So levels 1 through 3 were actions like read, synthesize, and coordinate. And levels 4 to 5 were write, analyze, and parse. And so level 4 to 5 are much more complex type of capabilities. And what we found is that financial services, even sectors like manufacturing and healthcare, ranked much higher in that sophistication index at either a level 4 or 5 than industries that are adopting much more quickly at the moment. So they're being much more intentional with their rollout, but they're making agents that are much more sophisticated in their actions. So kind of a little bit of a tale of 2 types of implementations, but very interesting outcomes. And I think it makes sense, right, when we look at the needs of these 2 different types of sectors of the economy. Retail and travel, not as highly regulated. They were all systems go, first adopters, fast movers. And then these regulated industries, maybe not as quick to adopt as widely across their business, but they are adopting. And when they do adopt, they're building out a high degree of sophistication.
Scale. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I really like that. And it's an elegant way of describing the tale of 2 agents. It reminds me of Lord of the Rings, but that was 2 towers. And I know who wrote Tale of Two Cities.
Tale of Two Cities, one of my favorite books. I gotta look it up.
Yeah, you can look it up while I'm saying nothing.
Charles Dickens.
There you go, Charles Dickens, good old Charlie boy. I think you nailed it. Especially for not only buying processes, which of course we see, but also just the day-to-day run of the business. There is much, the margin for error within manufacturing is very narrow. The margin for error with financial services is very narrow. The margin for error, within the public sector, well, maybe not the public sector. No, I'm just kidding. We won't go down that road. That'll be the road less traveled. But like when you're building highly sophisticated pieces of machinery, if you are going to adopt an agent, if you're going to adopt an agentic action in some way, shape, or form, like if you are going to move from proof of concept into adoption into production environments within your enterprise, it's going to be for very specific tasks that are highly sophisticated, where the margin for error is very low. And as a result, once you get something that works, manufacturers will scale the shit out of it. Yeah. And financial services, same thing. Once they find something that helps them to meet their client needs, to help them to either identify a specific type of product that will grow their client's book of business, they're going to scale that. But they have to do it in very, very sophisticated ways as a result of regulation, as a result of you can't, in manufacturing, you can't afford to have an entire line breakdown because you didn't have the level of sophistication when you were deploying that specific agentic action. So I really like the way that you guys have defined the levels of not only agent adoption, but agent sophistication.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it helps us understand to how different industries are approaching this technology, which we knew was always going to be the case because there is no one size fits all. And I think it's great to see the intentionality. And I think it's also great, we serve commerce and a lot of retailers. And I think what's exciting is just to see their enthusiasm as evidenced by how fast they adopted. And they are the first movers in this space. And because consumers are really the first movers in this space, and to see how they're really defining a lot of the use cases, maybe even for other industries, is really incredible and exciting. And it's exciting to be, working with an industry that is, at the forefront of agentic adoption. both internally as an operational efficiency gain, but also innovating on consumer experience.
All right. So final thought to the listeners. Top 3 learnings from the Agentic Enterprise Index. Go.
Well, our first learning, agents can do more than you think. So we didn't get to this finding, but what we're seeing is a rise in the number of unique actions that agents are taking on, and also a rise in what we are defining as sort of secondary functions. So taking on actions that are outside their core scope. So agents can do more than you think. Leveraging agents for seasonal surges. Every business has, peaks to their business throughout the year. And so really leaning in during those peaks and seeing what they can do for your business. We've seen use cases like in travel and retail where they've leaned into a great degree of success. And then thinking about how you can integrate agents into your daily channels, especially for the operational side for your employees. We know employees are open now to engaging with agents to do their daily tasks. And so bringing those tools to them in those channels is really going to go a long way, and ultimately supercharging, as we talked about, their day-to-day business. And so those were our 3 takeaways. But there's a lot more data in this index. So if you are interested in seeing all the findings, it is on Salesforce.com. You can dig into all of the great data.
Caila, always good to see you. I always learn something. You probably learned nothing when you talk with me.
I learned so much,
appreciate
Caila. That's not true.
Great to see you.
Great to see you too, Caleb. We'll talk next week.
All right. Cheers. Bye.